Hey guys, welcome to On Brand with Donny Deutsch, and must be Donny Deutsch. On Brand is a very unique podcast. We're the only podcast dedicated to a simple premise that everything, everybody is a brand. Every institution, every religion, every politician, every entertainer, every athlete, every company, every product. Look, anybody with a Facebook page is a brand. So what we like to do on the show is break down the brands of the week that are kind of dictating the zeitgeist about where we're going and why we're getting there, and kind of break it down, which brands are up, which brands are down, and which brands are driving kind of the direction of the world. What we also do on this show is we always have a big interview with a brand, a personal brand, a big brand. And today I'm thrilled. We've got Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen is the relatively new owner of the New York Mets. He's one of the wealthiest people in the world. He's probably the most famous hedge fund manager in the world. We're going to talk to him about his brand, the Mets brand, and transitioning from hedge fund guru to baseball guru. But first, let's get to our brands of the week. And our first brand of the week is Brand USA. And unfortunately, it's a big brand down and more of a future brand down. But this is very, very, very sobering. Nick Kristof, the New York Times, wrote a recent piece about America the Laggard. And I want you to listen to some sobering facts about Brand USA, because we always consider ourselves, we're number one and nobody's more of a patriot. I don't say nobody's more of a patriot. Nobody loves this country any more than I do, or most of us do. Here's some stats. The Greeks have a higher high school graduation rate. Chileans live longer. 15-year-olds in Russia, Poland, Latvia, and many other countries are better at math than American counterparts. I'm going to say that again. 15-year-olds in Poland and Latvia are better at math than American 15-year-olds. The Social Progress Index is a measure of health, safety, and wellness around the world, ranked U.S. number 28. Even worse, the U.S. is one of only 3 countries out of 163 that went backwards in well-being over the last decade. This does not bode well for the future. You know, we love as Americans to beat our chest and take victory laps. And right now, things in this country coming out of COVID are feeling good. Business is good around the country. The country is reopening all over, and there's a bullish quality. But if you look long-term and you look at some of those stats about our youth, about where this country is going, this is a bloated empire brand. This is a brand that, I don't mean to be sober. I'm just reading these facts. And Nick Kristof did a great job in this article in that it does not bode well as we go against China for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, all you got to do is look at the youth. And these are very sobering numbers. So something we all have to look hard at. Let's not be taking victory laps about America the Great. America is the greatest country in the world. But it is a little sober thinking about the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 35, 40 years. So that's it. A big brand up for Jill Biden. Dr. Jill Biden, of course, the First Lady. And she's gracing the cover of Vogue this week. Now, what's great about Jill Biden is she really is kind of adding to Biden's vibrancy in terms of his brand. You know, she goes to parts of the country, Alabama, West Virginia, Mississippi, Tennessee, parts that are not always welcome to Democrats, and she seems to be doing really well there. They call her the closer. And what was really nice in this Vogue article was that Joe Biden talked about the one thing about being president now that he doesn't like is he doesn't get the getaways with his wife. They used to always take once a month, go on a romantic weekend in Delaware to a bed and breakfast. He doesn't get to do it anymore, but a very loving tribute. And what's particularly interesting about the Vogue cover is, look, just about every first lady in the last 50, 70 years has been on the cover of Vogue. Lou Henry Hoover, Eleanor Roosevelt, Mamie Eisenhower, Jackie Kennedy, Lady Bird Johnson, Pat Nixon, Betty Ford, Rosalind Carter, Nancy Reagan, Barbara Bush, Laura Bush, of course, Michelle Obama 3 times. And Melania is the only one who has not been on the cover. Melania Trump, of course, she desperately wanted to be on the cover. And Anna Wintour took a stand and said, no, you're Donald Trump's wife. You're not going to grace the cover. So Jill Biden, big brand up, big brand down, reminding us that Melania Trump was the first lady not to be on the cover. Speaking of Trump, a big brand down, no surprise for Trump, but this is from a historical perspective. Historians just rank the presidents. Every few years, the 142 presidential historians rank presidents from best to worst. And the best presidents are always, the last number of years, have been Abraham Lincoln 1, George Washington 2, Franklin Delano Roosevelt 3, Teddy Roosevelt 4, Dwight Eisenhower 5. It rounds out with Truman, Thomas Jefferson, Kennedy, Reagan, Barack Obama, Lyndon Johnson. The 3 worst presidents, and he's tied for 3rd. The only ones who are worse than him are, I want to get this right, where are they? Oh, Franklin Bleeding Kansas Pierce, that's Franklin Pierce, Andrew, first to be impeached, Johnson, and James failed to stop the Civil War, Buchanan, who came in last. So there are three guys worse than Trump. And particularly if you really think about one was impeached Johnson and one Buchanan was the one who basically let the Civil War happen. But presidential rankings, Donald Trump third to last. He is outclassed or out-declassed by some of those guys I mentioned, but very interesting to see. So that's just another weekly brand Trump down. Speaking of Trump, big brand down for Alan Weisselberg. I talked about a couple of months ago this was going to happen. Alan Weisselberg indicted. The Trump organization indicted, so big brand down for the Trump organization. And basically they have them on tax things that Weisselberg, as the CFO, and his family were taking benefits, tax benefits, without reporting them. For instance, getting a car or getting tuition paid and not reporting. That's a way, it's like giving people cash under the table. And other things, the Trump organization indicted. Now, a lot of people are like, wait, why isn't Donald Trump indicted? And this is not something anybody's going to go to jail for. This is only the beginning. And the good news, if you're a Trump hater like myself, about the Trump organization indicted, beyond anything, it's going to immediately cripple their business. They can't, if you're an indicted company, you can't do business with banks. You can't borrow money from banks. You can't get liquor licenses, which is going to hurt his golf. This is going to decimate, just even this first step is going to decimate the entire Trump organization. And I couldn't be happier. And it's just a first step. What's going to happen, and this is a brand forward prediction, and I've said this for 2 years now, I've said this since Mueller, that what's going to happen, and there are going to be more indictments coming, is that they're going to RICO the Trump organization. RICO is the Racketeering, Influence, Corrupt Organization Act that actually Rudy Giuliani brought on, ironically, was the first one to use to go after mafia families in the 90s. And the premise of the RICO Act is it says that even if the hands, let's say you're Donald Trump, and his hands weren't pushing every button about every criminal act the organization did, they can still indict him based on an entire criminal organization, and that he's at the centerpiece of it. And there is so much to come. The Trump organization historically has been known as crooked in every way that you can be crooked. And what I've always said to people when they go, Trump's going to get away from it, Trump's going to get away, with it. No, he's not. And the simple reason is the universe. I'm never the guy that quotes the universe, but Donald Trump and his family, and particularly Donald Trump, tried to bring down the House. Basically, is the first president to show up in the history of the Union that tried to destroy basically the basic pillars of democracy, the things that our great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers fought for, which is basically, separation of powers and free elections and freedom of speech. If this guy had his way, he would have, stayed forever and would have been a dictator. I mean, there's no question about it. And something that has to be punished. The universe doesn't work if that goes unpunished to the point where I believe he ends up in jail. I really do. And I think if you go on the premise that any law enforcement officer, anybody working in the AG's office, or anybody who's working in the district attorney's office who does not earn a lot of money and whose entire life is built on, justice, they're going to go after him every fucking which way they can. Now, a lot of people are not happy with Merrick Garland because from a Department of Justice point of view, they're not going after him. But I don't have an issue with that. Then it becomes political. Then Donald Trump gets to play the victim card. Oh, the government's, this is the district attorney. This is the attorney general. This is not the national government. So I love it. This is the first step. Weisselberg, the Trump organization, the Trump brand, the Trump universe, the Trump organization, and Donald Trump are going to crumble. Big brand down for Washington State Representative Jim Walsh, another fucking class act. This is a Washington lawmaker who, get this, wore a yellow Star of David, obviously evoking Nazi persecution. Obviously, that's what all the Jews in Europe had to wear, these yellow stars to signify their Jewishness. He wore this yellow star at a rally, in an event, saying it's basically making people get vaccines is the same thing as wearing that yellow Star of David. Is signal to actually had the fucking balls to compare Jews being persecuted, Jews being slaughtered, to Americans being asked to vaccinate. This is these fucking people, and these people are in elected office. So fuck you, Washington State Representative Jim Walsh, biggest brand down of the week. Another brand down for the New York City Board of Elections, New York City mayoral race, which right now has Eric Adams on top in a slim lead. First, they had him up by 10%. Then they kind of recounted, and they net. They have so fucked up, and they've had to recall their tallies, and it's been a mess. And what's so sobering about this is on a national level. Obviously, what does this do? This gives credibility to all the assholes who run around and with every election going forward are going to say it was fake. Obviously, we know what Donald Trump's done over the last year. So really brand down New York City Board of Elections, you're really fucking things up. This is not becomes a New York problem now. This is now, if somebody wants to say, oh, this national election is not right. Look, New York couldn't even get it right. So New York Board of Elections, you got to get your shit together. A brand down for the Confederacy. The Confederacy, the final thing, obviously the Confederacy, is that, and a big brand down for the House, voted 285 to 120 to remove the Confederate statues, any of them left in the U.S. Capitol. Believe not, there were still, for instance, there was a bust of Supreme Court Justice Roger Taney, a slave owner who fashionably wrote the Dred Scott opinion, and they replaced his bust with Thurgood Marshall, of course, the African-American Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. But up until now, there still were statues in the U.S. Capitol of Confederate heroes. So finally, they're toppling, finally down. Big brand down for that douchebag Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, who almost every other week gets a brand down here because he's just one of the worst guys around. He's again insisting that he's being spied on by the federal government. And he asked the question, did the Biden administration read my personal emails? That's a question we asked directly to NSA officials and spoke to them in a heated conversation. Of course, NSA has denied it. They're not, the national government doesn't give a fuck about Tucker Carlson. But what's interesting about this, and Mediaite wrote about it, is that Fox News is not covering this story. This is what Mediaite pointed out. This would be a big story if the U.S. government was tapping the phones or really looking, spying, literally spying on a media figure. And why is Fox News not covering it? Because it's bullshit. And they don't even, and what needs to be said about Tucker Carlson, beyond being a homophobe, beyond being misogynistic, beyond being a racist, is he's so full of shit. And I believe the sadness with these guys is they're doing performance art. I don't believe he believes half the things he's saying. I think he says to himself, this is my 3 million people. This is what they want to hear. They're my audience. And I'm not that I understand, but when that light goes on, that camera goes on, and you know you're talking to an audience, something happens. And this is what happens to a lot of these guys. So I don't think he's as evil and bad as he appears on TV, which makes it even worse. It's what I call disgusting, evil performance art. So fuck you, Tucker Carlson. Next brand down for James Franco. And he is interesting as I'm bringing this. James Franco paid out more than $2 million to formally end a acting school exploitive sex suit. He's paid $2.235 million. And basically the initial suit from 2 years ago alleged that Oscar Niemeyer and Franco sought to create a pipeline of young women who were subjected to his personal and professional sexual exploitation and education. They would do sex scenes, and there was civil suits against them, and he settled them. And the interesting thing about the Franco brand, even though I'm giving him a brand down, it doesn't seem like it's sticking. And this has to him where it's really taken out Me Too, some other guys. A lot of it has to do with when scandals happen, when somebody who's known as a good guy, and obviously this is a major blemish on him being a good guy. I don't know if he has that brand anymore. Somehow they have more of a survival chance. It's interesting how this has not stuck to him. It has not been big news. It's a big deal where other guys who have done things, not identical things, but certainly pretty horrific things, it stuck to them. And it has to do with a little reservoir of goodwill in the industry. So just something interesting to look at, how he's surviving this. It does not seem to be taking his brand down, where other guys who basically were not as well liked and did not have, they don't get that safety net. So interesting thing to watch as you scorecard various scandals and how they affect people. Really big brand up for The Sopranos. The Sopranos movies come back. Look, Sopranos best television show of all time. And it really, beyond being a piece of art for 7 seasons that I've probably watched 3 or 4 times, I've watched the entire series over and over and over again, is that basically it launched a whole genre of television. This anti-hero star, this kind of incredibly well-written, well-scripted, well-acted serial type of television that we see that is basically the foundation of streaming now. But the reason I'm bringing it up is there is a Many Saints of Newark trailer coming out, and that is a prequel to The Sopranos. It's a story about a young Tony Soprano, played by James Gandolfini's son, Michael Gandolfini, in Newark, set against kind of the racial tensions of the time. And it shows an early young Tony Soprano growing up and his relationship with Dickie Moltisanti, who is Michael Imperioli's character's father that, you never met in the show. But this is gonna happen. When is this coming? This is coming, I think, in the fall. The trailer just broke. It's gonna be in movie theaters and on HBO Max. And boy, I cannot wait. David Chase, the brilliant creator. So big brand up for The Sopranos with the Sopranos movie coming up and the trailer out. Big brand up for the NFL. The NFL, who is one of their stars, the first current player, Carl Nassib, I don't know if it's Nassib or Nassib, please, I apologize about the pronunciation, came out last week, Oakland Raider defensive end who said he was gay. And amazing what Roger Goodell did, and I think he does overall a great job as commissioner. They did a public service announcement that said the NFL football is gay. The NFL is those words that they use in the public service announcement that they said football is gay. And I think that's amazing. What is a little sobering is none of his teammates have come out on social media in support. They haven't said anything negative, but you would think this would open a floodgate. So big brand up for the NFL, kind of taking advantage of this. Not want to say taking advantage of the situation, but using this as a platform to kind of really, really get behind LGBT rights. But I'd like to hear some more from the Oakland Raiders. Interesting, we haven't heard from them. Big brand up for the WNBA. Now, Colin Cowherd, who's I think he's Fox Sports, came out and he lauded the WNBA and because they have a 99, and he said, look, the WNBA is 99% vaccinated. And whereas most men's sports, the NFL, the NBA, they don't make players get vaccinated. You can't make people get vaccinated. But some say it's 40%, 50%, 60%. And what Cowherd do is he draw the line and said, this proves one more time that women are smarter than men. And I agree with that. I wrote a chapter in one of my books, which is called Often Wrong, Never in Doubt, called The Female Superiority Doctrine. I think women are superior to men. I think they're stronger. And when I was in business, if you gave me a woman of this man of the same exact makeup, if you could do a science experiment and say, okay, here's a man, here's a woman, they have exact same stats, exact same everything, I would take the woman every time. And the reason why, and by the way, my company, my entire 9 of my 11 senior partners were women. That's why we were so successful. This was long before it was Vogue to be putting women in power. I was just a lot fucking ahead and a lot smarter than most people. And if you ever want to understand why women are better than in business and superior, just watch a little Saturday morning TV commercial of a man or a woman's boy, or a little boy's toy or a little girl's toy. In the little girl's commercial, girls are always playing collaboratively and giggling together where they're playing with dolls or whatever they're playing with. That was sexist. Whatever they're playing with. And in a little boy's commercial, at the end of the commercial, one boy wins and goes, I won, and raises his fist. And that's what men are like. We are emotionally, I always spent more time in my business managing guys, how big their office is, how big their paycheck is, how big their everything is, where women want to work collaboratively and get paid fairly, and it's not a zero-sum game for them. So I found women superior in business. I find them superior as the sex. So I agree, and WNBA is one more example of it. Big brand up for Walmart. Walmart, which keeps doing really smart brand things, and they do them, I think, yes, because it's the bottom line, but it's good business for them. It's the right thing to do. They have a in-house brand of insulin that costs about $73 a vial for a package, or $86, as opposed to what it used to cost, which is $251 bucks. And the insulin is the latest addition to the Walmart private brand of diabetes product called Rely On. And what's so smart is that their whole brand is everyday low price. So why not do something that is just right and helpful for your consumers that need it? A lot of these diabetes sufferers who don't have health care, they actually can't afford it, and the fucking drug companies can't figure it out. So Walmart's taking it upon themselves. Their in-house brand, they're lowering to maybe a third or a quarter of the price. And good for you, Walmart. And it's right in tune with your brand. Why not say everyday low prices to even save lives? So good for you, Walmart. They do a lot of things right, and there's a reason they are where they are. A brand review, a brand up for a brand I talked about a while ago. One of my first podcasts where I talked about how the Gap is doing a collaboration with Yeezy brands, of course, Kanye West's brand, and how already it's being predicted that this, when I talked about it was a great idea, this was not out there, predicted to do nearly $1 billion in sales. And it's interesting, 75% of the people who have never shopped at the Gap said, oh, they plan to buy other Gap products. And the point I made weeks ago when I talked about this is if you have a really slumbering brand, sometimes I don't want to say a dead brand, but a really dormant brand, there's nothing you can do to shake it up sometimes other than rebrand it with another brand. And that's what they did. And so brilliant for the Gap, brilliant for Kanye. Big brand up for car dealerships. This is really interesting. When you grew up growing for cars, there's always the MSRP, the manufacturer suggested retail price, and you go in and you negotiate. I used to do a lot of advertising in car dealerships, and you say, well, here's the price, but you can come in and negotiate. No, 75% of price of cars now are selling above the sticker price. So when you go into a car, that's such pent up demand based on obviously the pandemic, but also a very strong economy, that if you go in to buy a car, you know the way sometimes you want to watch and, you got to overpay for something, that's like, I don't want to say on the black market, but, now just going into a car dealership, they're charging more than what the sticker price is. It's incredible. So big brand up for car dealerships, not necessarily a brand up for consumers. And speaking of cars, there's a big brand up for flying cars. A prototype flying car has completed a 35-minute flight between international airports in Nitra and Slovenia. The hybrid car air car is equipped with a BMW engine and runs on regular petrol pump fuel. Its creator, Professor Stephen Klein, said it could fly about 600 miles at a height of 8,200 feet and has clocked up to 40 hours in the air. Wow. Takes 2 minutes and 15 seconds to transfer the car from a regular car into a flying car. Pretty great. And our final brand is something that CNBC has branded the Great Resignation. And what the Great Resignation is that I want everybody to listen to this stat. This is fucking incredible. That the pandemic has caused, obviously, a lot of people to reevaluate, particularly work, and that 92% of people are willing to switch jobs or industries right now. They're now considered, like, it gave everybody a wake-up call and to say, maybe I don't love what I'm doing. Maybe I want to be at a different company. Maybe I want to do something different for a living. Maybe I don't want to work. So 92% of people polled are saying they're thinking about resigning from their job. Doesn't mean quitting in the workforce, but moving. So really interesting. So something that CNBC branded, and I think it's very interesting, the Great Resignation. And those are our brands of the week. Hey, everybody, let's take a break. We're going to hear from some of our great sponsors. Hey, I want to talk to you guys about Netsuite. And Netsuite's amazing. And if you're a business owner, you might be making running a business a lot harder on yourself. Don't let QuickBooks and spreadsheets slow you down. It's time to upgrade to Netsuite. I ran a business. Netsuite is really, really smart. Now, look, you stop paying for multiple systems that don't give you the information you need when you need it. Ditch the spreadsheets and the old software you've outgrown. Now it's time to upgrade to Netsuite by Oracle. This is the world's #1 cloud business system. Why would you use any system that's not #1? And this is Netsuite. It gives you visibility and control over your financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, everything you need all in one place instantly. This cleans up your business, guys. You're running a business, Netsuite is the way to go. You basically, QuickBooks, spreadsheets, all done. Whether you're doing $1 million or hundreds of millions of revenue, save time and money with Netsuite. Join over the 24,000 companies using Netsuite right now. And here's the offer, guys. Let Netsuite show you how they'll benefit your business with a free product tour at netsuite.com/Donny. That's netsuite.com/Donny. Schedule your free product tour right now, netsuite.com/Donny. It's hot outside and temperatures are rising. Obviously, we're in the middle of summer here, and obviously insurance rates always rise, except when you go to Policy Genius. This is why you need to go to Policy Genius. It makes it easier to compare insurance quotes from over a dozen top insurers all in one place. To properly provide for your families, most people need 10 times the life insurance coverage they get through their employer, which means you need to call Policy Genius. It doesn't matter whether it's a child or an aging parent or even a business partner. People need life insurance. And Policy Genius brings all the quotes together in one place. You can get the cheapest life insurance there. You know you're getting the right life insurance. You can save over 50% more on your life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. You could save, listen to this, $1,300 or more a year on life insurance by using Policy Genius to compare policies. So if you currently have life insurance, go look. If you need life insurance, go look. You can save 50% over $1,300. The licensed experts of Policy Genius, they work for you, not the insurance companies. You can trust them. That kinds of services earn Policy Genius thousands of 5-star reviews across Trustpilot and Google. All eligible applicants can get covered in as little as a week. And the exclusive policy, it was rated #1 by Forbes, higher than options from Ladder, Ethos, and Bestow. So getting started is easy. First, head to policygenius.com/Donny. In minutes, you work out how much life insurance coverage you need and compare personalized quotes to find your best price. When you're ready to apply, the Policy Genius team will handle the paperwork and scheduling. Policy Genius never sells your information to other companies. Policy Genius does not add extra fees. So head to policygenius.com/Donny. That's policygenius.com/Donny to get started right now. When it comes to insurance, it's nice to get it right. Policy Genius. You're going to love my interview today. It's a really one of the most impressive guys you'll ever listen to. Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen is the new owner of the New York Mets. Steve Cohen has been in the public eye for many, many, many years, mostly known as probably the most successful hedge fund manager in the world. He's the 127th richest person in the world, the 36th richest person in the U.S., a net worth of $16 billion. A lot of people say the Bobby Axelrod character in Billions was kind of fashioned somewhat after him. One of the most brilliant financial minds of our time, and he has now undertaken a new life as a savior of the New York Mets. He's a guy that grew up, his childhood dream following the Mets as a kid from Great Neck, Long Island. And he's, as I said, one of the most successful businessmen in the world, and now the new owner of the New York Mets. So sit back and enjoy my interview with Steve Cohen. Well, I am thrilled to have on the show today one of the most interesting people you'll ever listen to. He's an old college buddy of mine, Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen has been known most of his life as probably the most successful hedge fund guy in the history of the universe of intergalactic finance. One of the wealthiest guys in the world, a philanthropist, a great dad, a great husband. But his new kind of venture, for lack of a better word, is the owner of the New York Mets. And every childhood's dream. And I'm thrilled to welcome Stevie Cohen. Stevie, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Donny. Good to see you. What's happening?
Good. First of all, how much fucking fun are you having? I can't even fathom it. I mean, it's every guy's dream, not every guy's dream, but a lot of, I mean, just tell me, pinch me and tell me what it's like.
I mean, I'm having a blast. I mean, it's so much fun interacting with the fans. They are so passionate and they're so into it. It just kind of motivates me. I got a Twitter thing going and they're just funny as hell on Twitter, and at the ballpark they're just happy to see me, and it's just a great experience, So
what's
I'm
amazing
glad I did it.
I would imagine what's amazing to see as a kind of an omniscient observer, guy who knows you, is just obviously knows you personally, but in watching your kind of career in your life, is that this has been a transformation for you, just the way you described it. Your kind of brand historically has been kind of mysterious finance. Most guys in finance are not out in front of things. And, you've kind of really kept quiet. Obviously, you have a very well-known art collector and a philanthropist, but and this has rejuvenated and kind of changed your whole brand. Somebody wrote you went from like Bobby Axelrod to Mark Cuban. And you went from a mysterious guy to this beloved New Yorker now who's going to save the city. And that's just got to feel good as a person. I mean, beyond the fun you're actually having it, that's just got to feel fucking good.
Well, I mean, the reality is I'm the same person. I've always been the same. It's just maybe they didn't know me, right? Just this perception of me. And so now they're seeing the real me, right? I mean, I'm just being who I am. And on Twitter, if I tell a bad joke, it's a bad joke. And if, I'm pretty straightforward and listen, I'm who I am, and I hope hopefully the fans have been great. They've really been really supportive, and so they really made it easy for me to kind of move into this new role, and so far so good.
But you've made it easy. You've been very. It's genuine, but you've also been very smart about it. You realize that sometimes owners seem like they're not one of us, for lack of a better word.
Right.
And you just started out as a fan, and from your first press conference you came on, you said, look, I really want to make people happy, and people sense that.
Yes.
And that's contagious. And you talk about the guy who you are. I want to go back to who you are. You're a guy, I mean, I first met you at Penn you were playing cards at ZBT, always taking everybody's money.
Yeah.
But we're going to go earlier than that. We're going to go, you growing up in Great Neck, Long Island.
That's right.
Playing cards at Kenny Ginsburg's house.
That is correct.
And, I read a quote that a guy named Billy Omachenko talked about what was great about you. And this is kind of a little peek into your soul, is that you always won, but that you never took anybody's money at the end of the day. It was like IOUs. You didn't want it to like it, that it was, you were showing an early prowess for numbers or analytics, cards, whatever you want to call it. But your buddies, you didn't kind of take, at the end of the day, you said, no, keep your money. That's cool.
That is actually not a true story. Okay.
You got a good publicist
totally
out there.
That is totally false. We were happy to take their money.
That's funny.
Listen, we were playing for some real money at a very early age. I mean, I used to work in a grocery store. I was making $1.80 an hour, right? So I'd work for an evening shift. I'd make 4 hours or whatever. I make $7.20. I was winning and losing $500 a night. Okay, so I finally realized what's the point in working in a grocery store? And essentially, we'd play all day, all night, and so that's how I made a living.
So that obviously you were winning a lot more than losing. Of course, making $180. I'm not great at math, but you can't take many losing nights of 500.
No,
and
no.
At Penn, you were at the ZBT fraternity. You were the guy that was always winning, and you were the guy even back then as like the stock guy. You were like trading stocks. Take me back to how that starts, because it's not something most 18 and 19-year-olds are thinking about at that point. Where can you give me your first kind of memory of, wow, this is kind of cool and interesting, and I might be pretty good at this thing?
Well, I mean, I remember my dad bringing home the newspaper, the Post. I read the sports page, and then right after was the, stock prices. And so I used to sit with my dad and my mom at dinner, read the paper, then go right to the stock prices. And I used to have a lady that used to take care of us, and she used to talk about her stocks. And, when my parents went on vacation, she'd come and take care of us for a week. And she'd tell me about these companies and how they went up in price and how they split. And so I started looking at stocks. And frankly, I used to go down to my local brokerage firm when I was 13, 14 and hang out there. And it used to be a tape, like this electronic tape, and it used to come across. And you sit there. There used to be a front row like a theater seats. And people would sit there and they'd watch the market go across. And I'd sit there with the older people who would sit there, and I'd be 14 years old, and I'd in my local brokerage firm, and I'd sit there with them, and I'd watch the tape go across. So I was doing this really early.
But what was, as a 13-year-old, where most of us think about sports, or we're starting to think about girls, so what was it that turned you on about that?
I don't know. I don't know how it happened. It just was fascinating to me. So I just got interested in it. It was like watching numbers go across. In reality, what I really was developing was noticing pattern recognition, that I could tell that certain things were happening, and I could tell what was going to happen next.
Yeah, that's the gift.
So by the time, I developed it, that skill over a period of time, and I did the same thing in college. So by the time I got out of college, I was pretty well developed. I developed my own trading style, and was trading at a local. I joined a firm at 22 years old.
Was that Grunthal at that time?
And at Grunthal,
right?
And essentially at 22, 23, I was trading a lot of at that time significant money at a very early age.
And in 92, you start your own firm. You probably don't remember this. This is what a schmuck I am. You were going out raising money, and you actually came to my ad agency. I don't know if you remember this. I didn't even know what a hedge fund.
I don't remember this.
You came up. You were like looking to raise money. I mean, it was you weren't Stevie Cohen yet. Right. You were just a guy starting a business. And I, of course,
I had a different name then.
I'm sorry, what?
No, you said I wasn't Steve Cohen. I had a different name then.
Yeah. it was, but you, I remember I didn't even understand what it was, so I didn't invest. So shame on me. Hey, everybody, and here is a few words from our sponsors. If you're into audiobooks, you got to go to Audible. And it's very simple. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment all in one place. At Audible, you can find the largest selection of audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers and new releases to celebrity memoirs, languages, business motivation, and more. Original entertainment from top celebrity creators and thousands of popular and binge-worthy podcasts. I listened to Michelle Obama's book on it, Becoming. This is the place you got to go. As an Audible member, you will get 1 credit every month, good for any title in their entire premium selection. That means the latest bestseller, the buzziest new release, the hottest celebrity memoir. Titles are yours to keep forever in your Audible library. You also get full access to the popular Plus catalog. It's filled with thousands of audiobooks, all original entertainment, guided fitness and meditation, sleep tracks, everything. All are included in your membership, so you can download and stream all you want, no credits needed. You can keep your credits up to a year with everything you love to listen, all in one free app. Audible is your playlist for life. New members can always try Audible for 30 days on them. Audible will pick up the first 30 days. I'm telling you, it's great. I have it. Go to audible.com/Donny or text Donny to 500-500 to get started with your free trial today. So once again, that's audible.com/Donny or text Donny to 500-500 to start your free trial now. That's Audible. I'm telling you, this is the place to go. You built this amazing company. I'd love to know your philosophy, not in terms of finance and trading and whatnot, but what you built a great business. I want to know what the keys to, beyond your own skill, obviously, and then we're going to kind of move into what translates and what transfers to running the Mets. But if I was going to say to you, Stevie, keys to success beyond your own acumen, but of building an organization, what would you say the keys were?
Well, I think the key is you can't stay static. You have to be adaptable. You have to look forward. I've seen so many people over the years that had, pretty good runs along the way, but kind of didn't change and didn't kind of, because, the world changes. Things are, what worked in the 80s or 90s didn't work in 2000, didn't work in 2010. And, they went out of business. And I kept evolving and kept, upping my game, changing my game. And that's what it took to stay in business. And so, I used to drive my management teams crazy because we'd be doing really well. And I just want to tear down my firm and totally change it. And that's kind of what it took to, keep going.
If it ain't broke, break it. If it ain't broke, break it.
Because I was looking around the corner and saying, I knew what was coming. And I knew that what we had today wasn't going to work in 5-10 years.
And after a certain point, one of the reasons I sold my company, I got a little bored with the success. I don't have the success you had, but I had a success. I would walk into meetings, in a 3-hour meeting, I knew how I was going to end in 30 seconds. I felt I kind of won the game. You won the game a long time ago. So take the Mets thing aside. What keeps you motivated in business? You got it. Okay, you can grow from X amount to billions to X million. You can create your personal net worth. It's obviously not about that anymore. So what is it?
Yeah, it's not about the
it's never about
the money. Yeah, it's not. So, it's just about like creating something new, different. Learning new things. Right? Like I'm doing a deep dive on crypto right now. I don't know anything about crypto, but it's the opportunity to learn something new, involve myself in something that I have no clue about, and try to figure it out.
I've written a couple of books, and one of the chapters is called The Multiple Mountain Theory. And I say to people, there's an irony to success. You're good at something, you get self-actualized, you make money, and you just keep doing the same thing. Yes, you kind of, and what I did, I sold my company because I wanted to get into the media, and it was a new thing for me. And so that's what keeps you young and fresh. And for you, the Mets is the pinnacle of that. I mean, talk about at age 64, not only the ultimate new kind of.
No, 65.
65. That's right. Just this last week, right?
Last week, I turned 65.
I had lunch with one of your friends the day he was.
Oh, by the way, I was standing by my mailbox waiting for my Social Security check. It didn't come. I was disappointed.
So what are Forbes wrote an interesting article talking. Somebody wrote that 5 key CEOs can learn from Cohen, and that kind of translate from building a big financial firm to running a sports team. What do you see the parallel? You say, okay, this worked for me there. This is kind of how I kind of transfer and what's going to make it work for me here.
Right. Well, I mean, there are some commonalities between running a hedge fund and running a baseball team. I mean, we're big proponents of developing talent. I mean, that's what baseball teams do.
That's what all companies do, basically. So, I mean, that's everything.
Yeah, I mean, all companies do. Yeah, right. So, I mean, it's really expensive trying to buy talent, right? I mean, signing free agents, pretty expensive. So if you can develop talent, it's a lot cheaper. They know your culture. They know kind of what you want. And so it's a better approach. And the best teams in baseball develop their talent. So, that there's some, and the same things in hedge funds too. So it's the same idea. We have a very strong analytics in our hedge fund. We have a data analytics area it took 5 years to really get it to where it needed to be. And I'm doing that in the Mets now. We've improved analytics. When I got there, I think there were 6-7 people in analytics. Today, there's 20. And you can already see it in our ability to play defense. Our defense is much more highly rated this year than last year. And so, it's sort of bringing the same kind. Listen, I'm creative. I'm
Yeah.
innovative, and so I tend to ask very probing questions to my management team, and so I do the same thing with the Met
How do
staff.
you're so much, you are an analytics guy and a data guy, yet you have to make a decision. You go, okay, do I spend $300 million on Lindor, or do I go after Trevor Bauer or George Springer? There's no computer for that.
Right.
There's not. So take me behind the scenes. It's off season. You got some money to spend, and say why. This is what made my decision. This is because it's a different kind of decision making for you. And so take me as best as you can behind the scenes. And this is why I spent the money there versus spending the money there. I'm just using those Springer and Bauer's examples as they were high guys, and said, no, the better investment is Lindor.
Sure. Well, those are always tough decisions. Each free agent has its own kind of idiosyncratic negotiation. We weren't really that close with Realmuto. He was a big free agent. Springer, we were willing to pay only so much, and he got a great bid from Toronto. And
but is there an analytic? Is there an analytic? You go, okay, he's looking for, I don't forget the number he's got. He's looking for 23 a year. We're willing to go 21 a year. How do you? That's what I'm trying to get. And there is no answer. What's that secret sauce? Because
I'm not sure there's a science to it. I mean, I think the closest statistic is this WAR winning above, and so a Springer might have, I forget what the WAR was there, and I think there's a metric, certain $1 million for WAR, and but what happens is the longer the contract, the older a player gets, the more likely that number tends to decrease. And so, listen, I mean, I think the statistics, the stats out there are pretty clear that if you sign enough free agents who are over 30, you're probably going to have a lot of bad contracts.
What's interesting in that Forbes article, they said the 5 key CEOs can learn from Stevie is first is great pipeline. That's no different than a company needs an R&D system, and developing talent, you need the farm system. And to your last point, superstars can create mediocrity. If you have 1 or 2 guys on the team that are making a lot of money, they're now in the 5th year of their contract, they make the highest paid and one of the least productive, it affects the whole psyche of the entire team. So that if you can have this kind of, and it's the same thing with if you have a guy within your fund that's making a lot more money than somebody else, it's a meritocracy, so that wouldn't happen. But that's an interesting formula, and having to be careful with the star system.
Well, it's tricky. I mean, contracts do run out, and in baseball, players are in different points of their maturity. Some are young, and the way the system runs today is the team controls a player for 6 years. First 3 years, salary is pretty low. Then you go through arbitration, and so there are bands of which they could get paid until they're free agents. So so I'm not sure about whether they're jealous or upset. From a performance side, I think if you sign enough free agents and they're later in their career, performance is going to go down. It's going to saddle the team with sort of contracts that aren't performing. And then you get over the luxury tax, and that creates those issues. And you lose draft picks and things like that, and which eventually hurts your farm system. And so, it creates problems that eventually perhaps could affect future.
What was the first thing you buy the team? You spend, I think it was $2.47, close to $2.5 billion. Yeah. All of a sudden, you have this thing you know nothing about, other than you're a fan. I'm assuming at that point. What's the first thing you do?
Exactly.
What's the first? Okay, I won. I got it. What were the moves at that point?
Yeah. Well, the first thing you do is try to create.
You start with Sandy,
team, right? Yeah. Make sure you have the right people in place, right? So, I was lucky enough to have Sandy Alderson, who I was going to bring in to be my president. And you want to build a baseball side because ultimately it's a baseball product. So immediately, we bought the team November 1st, which was a little bit late already because the baseball season had ended for the Mets October 1st. And we had to go find a general manager. And it wasn't easy to find somebody. in baseball, you have to ask permission for clubs to talk to their employees. I wasn't getting permission. And so it was a little bit difficult to find someone to work for us. We hired somebody. They had some issues. And, they ended up leaving the team in 37 days.
Yes.
And luckily, we hired our first choice, but we also hired our second choice. And the second choice, the assistant GM, became the GM. And so, so it's
do you
actually
feel,
worked out
asking permission
fine.
from the other owners? You're the new guy. You also, not to embarrass you, but you're wealthier
Yes.
than the top three other owners, wealthiest owners combined. So something tells me that you weren't getting an absolute welcome mat from the rest of the owners.
Well, listen, I mean, if I'm a owner of another team and I like my employee,
Sure, of course not.
I don't want to give them up, right? So even though it might be a better job, so I want to hold on to my employees. So I get it. I understand their position. I think the system is a little bit difficult, as as an owner coming in, because you get permission and then you only have a few days to meet the person and decide if you want to hire them. Now, if I were to hire somebody at Point72,
sure, of course,
I would take my time, get to know them, right? In baseball, you only have a few days to decide whether this is going to be your general manager or not. So it's a little bit risky, and if you get it wrong, that's a problem. So, but that's the system.
You decided to start inviting
in.
players over for dinner. What made you do that? And talk to me. I think you had Alonso over.
Yes.
I think you had Conforto over.
Yes. I've had a lot of players over.
What draw? I mean, it makes sense. I would hope all owners do that. But what's that like? You have these guys coming into your home. You're still a fan on the one level, and now they're employees of yours. It's just an interesting human dynamic.
Well, I'm the owner. I'm new. I can learn from them, right? I mean, it's a conversation where they can give me insight on what's going on at the club, how they're feeling about things. I mean, ultimately, I've got to sign them, perhaps if they're close to a contract, a free agency contract. So it's good to have a relationship with that person. I mean, I do that with my people in my firm and the hedge fund. I mean, we're people, right? They work for me.
How important? When I was running a company, I tried to limit the asshole factor. Whereas obviously I wanted people who could perform, but I wanted to surround decent people. How important is your philosophy going in? Obviously, the talent's got to start on the field, but that big C word, the character word, how much is that going into the Cohen secret sauce is building a team?
Well, we're lucky with the Mets. A lot of these players have grown up together in the farm system, and they really like each other. And then the players we brought in, Francisco Lindor, Kevin Pillar, Jonathan Villar, all these guys, they really, have made the clubhouse even better. So this is a clubhouse that genuinely likes each other. There really are very few assholes on this team. And, so they're really good guys, and they're very mature guys too. So we've got a really close knit group of players. That's that. But listen, they're all rooting for.
This show is all about branding. Tell me about the Mets brand. What do you see the Mets brand as? Obviously, it's a baseball team, but if you were going to say, okay, I define the Mets this way versus the Yankees or the Phillies or the Red Sox, what is there a Mets thing?
Well, we're thinking about that, and trying to develop our own unique kind of identity in New York. We think the Met fan is passionate. We think the Met fan is a true New Yorker. We think it's a diverse New Yorker. It's less corporate. I think the Yankees are more corporate. It's sort of we think it's, sort of the hardworking working class of New York. And I
Yeah,
think
I
we
like
can,
that. The
build on
everyman's
that.
team. Can
Yeah,
would you use
yeah,
the
exactly.
easiest way to kind of set that brand up is to contrast it with the Yankees, which is what you did in the second sentence. Would you ever use that in a marketing? Would you ever kind of
Yeah.
not define yourself in terms of the Yankees, but it's a shorthand to get the point across that you're trying to make? Like, okay, all the rich guys go up and see the Yankees, and this is where the real New Yorkers go,
Well, listen, the Yankees have a great brand, right? In my view, there's plenty of room for two brands of baseball in New York, I don't even feel like I'm competing with the
Yeah,
Yankees. I think they have their brand, and we can establish our own brand,
sure,
no
sure,
different than the
sure.
Nets are doing and the Knicks, right? The Nets have done a great job establishing their brand,
Yeah.
which is different than the New York Knicks brand. And I think we can do the same thing.
I always thought
And
the
there's plenty
secret
of room for
sauce
both
about
of
the
us.
Mets, and it goes back to because any great brand is about authenticity. So if you go back to their beginnings, obviously tremendous lovable losers, for lack of a thing. And then obviously in 69, they strike magic. And
Yes.
it's always this team with a heart that's always, I don't want to say overachieving, but there's a
Yeah.
scrappy, lovable, because they start out as such losers, that's the secret sauce, and that you're kind of secretly always rooting for them. And I think there's something in there. It's the underdog in all of us. Yeah.
But that comes from the fans. That comes from the fans. The fans, you know, think about, especially when the Yankees have won so many championships over the years, and the New York Mets have had their moments, but they've also had a lot of years where they really haven't performed that well, and yet their fans have stayed with them regardless. And they're the backbone of this team,
Yeah.
and it shows you the heart of their fans. They're and so I believe that the Met fan is the most passionate fan in New York, and
You
so I
hired
think we
me, and
can play on
my
that.
fee is very expensive. I charge a meal. If you hired me for my advice, I would say it's all in the word heart. It's the heart of New York, and there's a heart in New York Mets fans, and the team has a heart. And there's
Right.
some
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because we
right.
brought in an outside firm to work with us. Actually, I'm a
Okay, what's the name of the
25%
firm?
owner of a firm in LA.
Okay.
It's called Range Media, and
Mhm.
so we brought them in to work with us, and they're essentially working on the brand image, and I, I
Yeah.
think it's going to be around the
Yeah,
heart
no,
and that type
it's
of
that
stuff.
because
Diane, you're dead on.
that what
You're dead on.
makes for
So,
the right
yeah.
brand essence is, as I said, authenticity, your point of differential, and something that is meaningful to an audience. And you kind of that's that sweet spot in there. And uh there's something about, and in the
Yeah.
word love also. So heart and love, but so that's good to hear you're in the right direction.
Yeah.
So what kind of promises are we going to make for the Mets and I mean, this year you guys are in first place, off to a solid start, good start.
Yeah.
Obviously,
So far.
Injuries have been a big problem. You even
Yes.
went on
Yes.
Twitter and said, anybody want to suit up? So
Sure.
what's the 1, 2, 3, 5 year Stevie Cohen proclamation of what Met fans can expect?
Oh, that's dangerous, right? Predictions are hard, right? I mean, if you told me we had as many injuries as we've had over, since the start of the season, we'd still be in first place.
Right.
I would have said that that's impossible. So, listen, you know, I, I like what we're doing. I like the processes we're installing at the Mets. I think we're building up our analytics. We're building up our player development, R&D technology, our scouting. We're really trying to build up the infrastructure of this team. I'm doing this for the fans. I said it at my press conference. I'm not doing this to make money. If there's a free agent that we can go after that makes sense, we're going to do it. We're going to act like a big market club. Listen, I can't hit the baseball and I can't pitch it. Okay, so I'm dependent on my management picking the players. We're going to give them all the tools they need to be as successful as they can be, and then they got to play ball. And if we do everything right, we should be competitive every year. I mean, the Dodgers won 8 divisions in a row before they won the World Series.
Yeah.
Only one team wins a World Series every year. It's not easy, but I got to tell you something.
I'd be
I
betting
want to
on
win
you.
a World Series.
Do you remember as a kid ever having this dream of owning a team? I know you were a fan. I mean, was there ever a moment, because it is every kid's dream. I mean, was there any moment you can remember going to Shea or an instance where, or that was just so beyond the realm of comprehension at an earlier?
Yeah, I mean, who thinks that they're ever going to be owning it? The New York Mets. I mean, that's just beyond comprehension. So, I mean, listen, I tried to buy the Dodgers 10 years ago. I came in second. And so, it's been something that's been on my mind for a while, but it had to be the right place, the right location. I ended up buying a small piece of the Mets after the Dodger thing didn't work out. And, listen, it all worked out. I mean, it wasn't easy, right? I tried to buy it. It fell apart. And then, I thought that was it. And then I finally decided to try it
to
again.
Me,
and
it's got the thought
time.
of, and I know some other owners of teams, mutual friends of ours, or they own them in other cities. It's just different. It's just there. To me, it would just take 2/3 of the fun out of it if you weren't a fan going in, and it's not where you go to the ballpark every day, or at least you go to the ballpark a lot, or it's that to me is something pretty special.
Yeah, you got to be a fan to do this. I mean, I watch every game. I mean, I didn't realize how much I was going to care on every inning. Okay, every at bat. I mean, it's pretty. You really care. And so,
it's like
I think that's the biggest surprise to me
because it's a baby. A business is a baby, and the same way you watch your kids play sports, you're that vested on the field. I mean, different math, of course, but similar kind of thing. It's your baby.
Yeah, listen, the responsibility ends up it's on my shoulders, right? If we win, great. If we lose, I'm going to take the heat. And that's the way it should be.
You're a very philanthropic guy. You've given away close to $1 billion. Having the kind of wealth you have has got a big responsibility, obviously. And how do you kind of decide because you're going to give back a lot, obviously. And so there's so much out there. There's so much help that's needed. You obviously built a children's hospital. You've done a lot of things. Where does your compass go as far as philanthropy? That here's where I want to help out, because it's endless.
Well, I think you got to focus, right, somewhere. And what I've done is I've sort of divided it up. My wife is handling the foundation, which really focuses on children's health, on the arts, and Lyme disease, and also education. And so, and then I handle veterans. And so, I've built. We'll have 25 mental health clinics for veterans built around the country by the end of this year. We're providing, free care to veterans for, treating PTSD and traumatic brain injury. And it's been wildly successful. We're really proud of what's been built. And we're thinking about ways to expand it. And so,
good going, man. You're a dad. I'm a dad. I've raised my kids in affluence. You've raised your kids in affluence, a higher degree, of course. But how do you keep them hungry? There's a blessing and a cry. I mean, how do you, because there's a luxury of being hungry that our kids are not going to have.
It's really hard.
That there's a luxury to it. I remember getting a pen our first day and seeing these kids with their own BMWs. And I wasn't jealous. I was more stunned. I was like, wait, that's your car? How is that your car? And I remember going to myself, I can't wait to play cards with them and take their money. They're going to be soft. I can't wait to compete with them in business. So our kids, your kids, are not going to have that luxury. What do you do about that?
I think we try to demonstrate through who we are, to be grounded, not to brag about, sort of material things. But unfortunately, when you've got things so easy, it's just, you don't have that hunger.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and something that I had, And I mean, my mother used to send me a pen, $5 every,
I got
like,
35
once in a
bucks a week. I
while.
guess
Like,
I had nice
Mom,
pen. I got
that is
35
doing
bucks a week
nothing
when I
for
was
me.
at Penn. They sent it to me.
That's not, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like,
Yeah.
I had to make it up on my own. I mean, like, that's the way it was. And so, my kids are, they think, they get a
Yeah.
check every whatever, and they don't have to worry about a thing. And so, listen, that's some of it. So I guess some of it's my fault, and that's always a hard one. And we try to be very disciplined in how we hand money over to
Yeah.
them. But unfortunately, if you've never had to suffer for anything, you just don't know what it feels like.
Something tells me your beautiful wife, Alex, has a hand in keeping them grounded. That would just be my educated guess.
Oh, I'll tell you, she's tough. She is tough with them. Oh boy, like she takes no prisoners.
She's amazing. She's clearly a big part of your success. I'll let you go a couple minutes. Just one or two more questions. What is the Steve Cohen brand? If I was going to ask you,
That's a Steve Cohen brand. I think it's about being authentic, being real. You know, being having fun, being tell a good joke, but being the best it can be.
I think your brand is about the ultimate success, but it's morphing into a more human, giving success. If you think about your raison d'etre about building, I want to build a business, I want to get successful. Now you want to do it you keep talking about doing it for the fans.
Yeah.
You want to give back. And that feels good. And that's so your brand has been about expertise. Yeah, it's
exactly.
out of directed now.
Yeah.
So it's always been about, yeah. So it's now an out of directed
right?
pinnacle of excellence and success. So good for you, man. Yeah. Hey, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know how busy you are. Totally. I'm a big fan of you. I'm a big fan of the team. And thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, thanks, Donny. Good luck with the podcast. It really sounds great. Okay. Thank you.
Great job, buddy. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Steve Cohen, really interesting interview. I hope you are subscribing and rating and reviewing the show anywhere you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple, anywhere. You can also watch on YouTube. And we're having a great time doing On Brand. I hope everybody stays on brand. And we'll see you next week on On Brand.